Welcome back to term four, everyone. I'm so sorry I can't be there. I'm a little bit under the weather. I had a small procedure which required a general anesthetic last week, and I'm still quite exhausted and not back to my usual self. So, fingers crossed, I'll be back on Friday when I see you guys again. So, I will just lump you with a whole lot of theory today, but it's interesting stuff because we're going to be talking about sensory analysis, and we've already discussed bits of this, and we've always, evaluated and reviewed our food when we cook and when we eat and those kind of things anyway. So today we're just going to make it a little bit more formal, I guess. Hope you guys had a great holiday. I got down to Tasmania, which was really exciting. Ate lots of yummy food. Realised how expensive it is to eat out with a family of 5 now. Prices have gone up a lot, something we can talk about. And yeah, got to see lots of beautiful wilderness and amazing, the Gordon River, where we went on this cruise and we were able to see this World Heritage Site. Anyway, I'll rattle on about that when I come back and see you. But hopefully you're refreshed and ready to finish off the year with vigour. So today we're going to be looking at principles and practices for sensory evaluation of food products, and just understand why they're important, I guess. Why do we even care about our senses when we talk about food? So I'm just going to put my glasses on so I can actually read and see a little bit more. So I want you to log on to Food Studies Online. We're going to Unit 2, Outcome 2, first one, Sensory Analysis. And you can also flip to Chapter 13 in your textbook if you've got that with you as well. So we'll do little snippets from both. So today we're going to be thinking about our senses, obviously our 5 senses. So sight, touch, smell, taste. What's the other one? I'll let you figure that out. And how they are important when we talk about food. And obviously there's different scientists that are quite heavily involved, especially in the commercial production of food when it comes to sensory evaluation and sensory testing. So we've got food technologists, and then we'd have people who do all this qualitative and quantitative testing, so analysts. And then we also have a whole lot of consumers that come in and actually taste the food and give feedback before it actually fully goes into production. So if we have a little look here, so there it is. There's your 5 senses: sight, taste, sound, smell, and touch. My brain is a bit foggy at the moment, so I'll be talking to someone and I just can't even think of the word I need to use. So hence I'm staying home resting for a little bit longer. So sight, really important. The retina is a light-sensitive layer of tissue at the back of the eye. So this gives us a nice visual about what kind of happens. And it flips the image as we actually see it. Our brain recognizes it opposite. So there's electrical signals that travel from the retina to the brain, turning them into images that we actually see. So when we're discussing the look of food, we tend to use the term appearance a bit more than sight. So when we're cooking, obviously it's really important. We're not only just thinking about what it looks like. Thank goodness we see in colour, not just black and white. Otherwise, food would be pretty boring, I would imagine. So we also assess, the shape and the texture and what's it smell like, and do we want that that size, or do we want to chop it up smaller? So all of these decisions that we make, often without even really thinking that we're making these decisions, are really important when it comes to our food. So obviously the colour is really important. We assume carrots are going to be orange. They're not going to be blue. They're not going to be green. And we would be surprised if we found them a different colour. Now, obviously, there are some different varieties of carrots. I've grown purple carrots and I've grown yellow carrots. Has anyone ever tried a purple carrot? It is a little bit unusual because we're used to seeing carrots always being orange. But they're delicious. And apparently they never used to be orange. So the original varieties were more of a purple or a white version, and then we ended up with our nice orange varieties now. So the same, like if the color of the food isn't what you expect, you might think there's something wrong with it, or you might kind of go, ew, maybe that's not safe to eat, or I don't want to try that. It's a bit like the green eggs and ham story. Would you like green eggs and ham? Sam, I am. We would think that the eggs were off, wouldn't we, if they were actually presented as a green egg. So shape and size can be really, really important as well. So thinking about, if we were to buy a nice apple and I wanted a red, crisp, juicy looking apple, and I turn up and they're all shriveled and yellow and brown and some of them are looking like they're going moldy, I'm not going to buy it. So, and often nowadays, consumers want everything all the same size. So there's a lot of sieving out remember we talked about that, I think, in relation to potatoes, that people want standard sizes. Obviously you want the really nice small ones if you want chats for making potato salad. You don't mind a nice big one if you're wanting to make chips. But we want consistency in sizes. So consumers will often not select particular fruit and vegetables if it doesn't meet their shape and size expectations as well. So the appearance of food, so what we see, will, I guess, go through to our brain and make decisions about whether we think it's worthwhile purchasing or not. So, like if we wanted to go and buy an orange and they're all green, well, in our brain, we're probably going, they're probably not going to be very sweet, because that to me means that they're not ripe. So those kind of things. All right, what about the taste or the flavour of food? So what sense do we use? What part of our body? We use our tongue. Lots and lots and lots of taste buds on our tongue. So there are average 10,000 taste buds on an average tongue. Babies are born with a lot more and they tend to die off as we get older. So often as you age, you need to add more seasoning, more salt, more pepper to your food because the flavour deteriorates, whereas babies are hypersensitive. If you've ever seen a baby try like something sweet or something sour for the first time, you'll see massive reactions on their face, like or no, I don't like that. So big reactions there. So obviously we know that there's bitter, salty, sour, sweet, and the umami flavour. So a savoury and subtle taste that seems to resemble the taste of broth, and we're recognising that as being another flavour now. So basic flavours that people can taste, it might be something like salty olives or bitter radicchio, which is a red variety of a lettuce. Sour lemon is obviously a really popular one. And then something sweet like lollies or a cupcake. Really easy to distinguish, and certain cuisines try to have all of those going on. So I know if you ever watch MasterChef, there's that, you want the salty, the sweet, the crunchy, the sour, all of those different bits going on, and they like this big dance of what would we call it? Sensations going on in your mouth at the same time. So we can see here with these pictures, an apple can be bland, or it could be tart, or it could be tangy. So it is important how we describe food as to what it is. And different people are going to give different reactions according to how they taste it as well. So a biscuit could be chocolatey or salty or cheesy. And then if you talked about the texture of it, it could be chewy, it could be crunchy, it could be crumbly, depending on the type of biscuit that it is. The sausage here can be fatty or peppery or spicy. And then a smoothie, depending on what you put in it, obviously. It can be fruity, creamy, runny. It might be really thick like an ice cream. My son tends to like his smoothies like that. Whereas I tend to be able to prefer if I can drink mine. Sound. Why is sound important with food? I'll get you guys to have a little think about that and have a chat amongst yourselves. But the crunch or the crispness of an apple is actually really part of that experience eating. So and even in some cultures, the sound of someone slurping their soup is a sign that they are enjoying it. So sound can be an important part as well. So things like, and in your textbook, page 210, it's got like a little table of some descriptive words. So for noise or sound, we can think of things like crisp, crunchy, bubbly, crackly, fizzy, slurping, popping, dull, and you can probably think of others as well. And if you've ever watched Heston Blumenthal, he has these experiences with his food, and he sometimes has a recording where you actually put headphones on when the food arrives and you listen to something as part of that experience of that dish. Like it might be the sound of the ocean if you're eating some seafood, or he does all sorts of theatrical things, and it's often quite scientific in the way he describes things as well. So aroma is really important, smell as well, obviously. Different foods made up of all sorts of chemicals and flavors and things, and especially now where they try to, chemicalize the same natural flavors and smells and aromas. They can be quite complex in order to get that. I was watching something today talking about the type of chemicals used to make that banana flavored lolly. Like they take a particular chemical that is in bananas and then they obviously synthesize it and do it artificially, but in order to get that same aroma going and flavor on the palate. Okay, so aroma can be very important as well when you're actually cooking. Help you realize whether something may be cooked or undercooked. Like when you're baking muffins and you start to smell that sweet sort of cooked cake smell, then you're actually not only cooking with your eyes, but you're cooking with your nose, and then you can use a few different assessments to gauge whether it's cooked or not. So sensory analysis, you can read through this and why we need food technologists. But I just thought I would give you a bit of a rundown of some ideas. And I know you've been listening to me for 12 minutes already. It goes very quick when I start talking. And then we're going to be going on and looking at different types of ways to analyze sensory properties of food. So there are lots of different tests that people use. So these are a couple of different ones. There's a hedonic scale. So they rate food according to something they dislike extremely or like extremely. So this one's a happy face. Sometimes there's like star, different ones. We did one of these profiling tests with one of the products that you did, I think with your little snack pack that you made. So there's like a duo, trio test, there's pair comparisons, triangle tests, profiling tests. There are so many different things. And then there's ones where they describe as well. Sometimes they're blindfold tests. And we'll go through into that. I am going to get you today, if you go all the way down the bottom, and I'd like you to read this chapter, it would be great. If you start working on the written activity, that would be great. And I'll put some instructions in Schoology of what I'd like you to do. We're going to do 2 assessments this term to finish off. And one will be looking at a homemade versus a commercial product, and you'll have a go at making a product that could be made at home as like a takeaway meal, but it could potentially become a commercial product. So it might be something like, if you make a stroganoff, that could be a take-home meal. So, in the supermarket now, they're selling lots of those kind of things. Cafes often are doing that too. We'll talk about that a little bit more. And then we'll also be adjusting a recipe according to a dietary need. So we'll talk a bit more about that as well as time goes on. And hopefully I'll be back Friday and we'll maybe have a go at doing a little sensory evaluation on some products as well. Right, I'm going to say goodbye because this is going to cut out. All the best. Please email me if you need anything. Okay, bye.